An introduction. On the edge of a small town in western Ohio, sunlight struggled to break through a heavy canopy of slate-gray cloud. The air was thick with the scent of impending rain, underscoring an unsettling stillness that had settled over the countryside. Here, the past was woven into the very fabric of the land, with sprawling fields giving way to thick woods, murmuring secrets on the breeze. In this seemingly tranquil setting, however, a sinister chapter awaited discovery. The locals often regarded the abandoned Miller estate with trepidation. The hulking structure, draped in ivy and time-worn wood, loomed over the landscape like a forgotten sentinel, its windows dull and lifeless. Few dared to venture near, spurred by whispers of hauntings and tales of a family's sudden disappearance decades earlier. Rumors collided with reality. What had once been a cozy home was now a haunting reminder of unresolved mystery. It was there, on an otherwise ordinary Friday morning, that the first of many unsettling discoveries would surface. A routine inspection by the local sheriff's department would lead them to a series of long-buried truths, igniting an investigation that would grip the townsfolk in a stranglehold of fear and intrigue. As the rain began to fall, smudging the lines between fact and fiction, the estate was about to reveal its long-held secrets. The victim. The thud of boots on the damp wooden porch echoed in the stillness as Sheriff Tom Walker surveyed the Miller estate's front entrance. With a practiced eye, he examined the peeling paint, and the warped door seemed to resist the pushing hand of the law. Of a family's life frozen in time. And amidst the dust and decay lurked stories that begged to be told. As deputies edged past him, flashlights beamed through the darkened corridors. Their lights danced nervously across faded wallpaper, revealing long-forgotten photographs, now merely shadowy outlines hanging precarious. Heavy silence lingered, interrupted only by the creaking of the floorboards beneath their cautious steps. It was here, in the parlor, that they found her. The victim lay sprawled on the floor, an eerie stillness overtaking her youthful features. Amber locks framed her pale face, a stark contrast to the fraying tapestry beneath her. Sarah Miller, just 17, had been declared missing exactly 1 week prior. The small community had rallied behind her family, uneasily sharing news and tips, praying for her return. But hope had withered into despair in the wake of her grim discovery. The sheriff knelt beside her, heart heavy with the weight of loss and unresolved questions. How had a bright girl, known for her infectious laughter and dreams of college, ended up here? The house steadily breathed madness into the air, urging him to delve deeper. While others mourned, he steeled himself for the truth hidden within these four walls a moment, captured in time, waiting to unravel its secrets. The crime scene. The air hung thick with tension as the forensic team methodically combed through the Miller estate, their movements deliberate and efficient. Each item they examined was cataloged and preserved, as if pulling back the layers of time to reveal the narrative that had unfolded within these walls. Outside, the rain drummed an intermittent, mournful rhythm against the eaves, echoing the somber atmosphere inside. Amid the clutter of broken toys and old furniture, a single detail caught Sheriff Walker's attention: an overturned chair next to the body. It suggested a struggle, a final act of defiance in a place that was meant to be a sanctuary. Next to it, on the hardwood floor, the team uncovered a small shard of glass, its sharp edges glistening ominously in the artificial light. Walker knelt closer, heart racing with the possibilities. Did Sarah fight back? And if so, against whom? Tension hung heavily as investigators moved deeper into the chaotic remnants of the Miller household. Each room yielded traces of the family's life, from fraying family portraits lining a dusty mantelpiece to a freshly brewed cup of coffee sitting abandoned on the kitchen counter. The stark contrast of normalcy against the backdrop of tragedy sent a chill through the sheriff. He understood that every object within these walls held potential clues, hinting at relationships tangled in affection and animosity. Amid the grim discoveries, a gut feeling brewed within him this was more than just an isolated incident. Dark threads wove throughout the community, and the shadows of long-buried secrets began to unfurl around him. Sarah's murder had shattered the town's facade, and nothing would be the same again. The early investigation. As dawn broke over the quiet town of Maplewood, the sun fought to penetrate the remnants of the storm, casting a pale light over the Miller estate. Sheriff Walker convened with his team in the nearby community hall, the atmosphere charged with urgency and unease. Maps strewn across the conference table displayed the area surrounding the home, a visual representation of the networks that bound their small community together. Each officer presented their findings as they pored over witness statements. The names and faces of Sarah's friends and family filled the room like a gallery of sorrow. Tamara, Sarah's best friend, had been the last to see her alive, claiming they had shared a routine after school before Sarah vanished. Her tear-filled eyes told a story of guilt and confusion, fueling Walker's resolve to seek the truth. The investigation began to ripple outward, stretching to the high school, where whispers only hinted at potential suspects. Rumors of a troubled relationship with a young man named Jake Mitchell emerged as reputation colored by darkness, an enigmatic figure who sometimes loitered around the Miller home. But further digging revealed a timeline muddied by the innocence of youth. Jake had evidence to account for his whereabouts the night Sarah disappeared. As the day wore on, Sheriff Walker chased leads that seemed like ribbons of smoky ways, elusive. Had others in the town harbored secrets about Sarah that they remained unwilling to share? The shadows of the estate loomed in his mind. Each wrinkle in this tragic narrative beckoned him further, their echoes now woven deeply into the fabric of Maplewood. Together, they held answers that both terrified and invigorated him as he sought to piece together the last moments of a life tragically cut short. The dead ends. Days turned into weeks in Maplewood, the investigation into Sarah Miller's murder transforming from a frantic search for justice into a labyrinth of confusion. Each lead that surfaced seemed promising at first, only to dissolve into frustration. Sheriff Walker confined himself to his desk, the weight of unanswered questions pressing heavily on his shoulders as empty coffee cups and crumpled reports began to pile up around him like a monument to indecision. Interviews with Sarah's acquaintances yielded conflicting narratives. Some claimed she was descending into a world of reckless choices, dabbling with parties and peers who strayed far from the path of innocence. Peers who strayed far from the path of innocence. Others insisted she was the same bright-eyed girl, always caring for those around her. It became increasingly difficult for Walker to discern her true character, leaving him frustrated with the inability to pinpoint a motive or a suspect. Henry and Martha, the elderly couple who lived 2 houses down, were convinced they caught sight of a dark vehicle parked outside the Miller home the night Sarah disappeared. Yet, when questioned, they could provide no license plate number, nor could they agree on the make or model. Their recollections were muddled, clouded by age and uncertainty. No physical evidence materialized to support their claims, and the sheriff felt the bitter sting of defeat gnawing at his resolve. With each passing day, the case grew colder, mirroring the changing season. Fall had arrived, bringing with it earthy sense of decay and fading foliage. The once bustling town of Maplewood tightened around him, an oppressive silence hanging like a thick fog as the search for Sarah Wilson's truth slipped further from his grasp. Hope was dwindling, and the shadows of the estate continued to loom ominously, a reminder that the past held onto its secrets with a cold, unyielding grip. A break in the case, as the leaves turned to gold and brown. A quiet persistence haunted Sheriff Walker's thoughts, the lingering sense that the truth lay just beyond his reach, disguised within the ordinary lives of Maplewood's residents. It wasn't until one late afternoon, filled with a quiet resolve, that clarity began to emerge from the murk. A local youth, a junior from the high school named Tyler, approached Walker at a neighborhood gathering, nervousness evident in the way he fidgeted with the hem of his sweatshirt. "I think I know something," Tyler stammered, casting wary glances at the other attendees. The sheriff leaned closer, intrigued. During a party they'd both attended just days before Sarah went missing, Tyler revealed that he'd seen Sarah arguing with someone in the dim light of the backyard. He described a figure that matched Jake Mitchell's build, but was cautious in his assertion. I didn't want to say anything. I didn't think it was serious. They were just kids, you know." A tidal wave of determination flooded Walker at this revelation, the threads of the investigation weaving tighter together. Tyler's description led Walker down a different path, one he neglected an inquiry into the digital footprint left behind by Sarah. A painstaking examination of her social media ledgers revealed a heated exchange of messages leading up to her disappearance, hinting at a brewing conflict that had escalated beyond teenage drama. The tension welled this time with a renewed sense of urgency. Sheriff Walker rallied his team, ready to confront the seams of violence woven into their community, knowing that Sarah's voice longed to be heard. As the sheriff returned to the office, determination rippled through him, buoying his spirit. He sensed they were on the cusp of a breakthrough that could finally lift the veil of silence that had ensnared this case for far too long. The suspect, with Tyler's revelation igniting a flame beneath the investigation. Sheriff Walker found himself at a crossroads. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fit together, and the looming figure of Jake Mitchell settled heavily on his mind. Known for a rebellious streak that separated him from the rest of the student body, Jake had already drawn whispers of concern from parents and teachers alike. As Walker prepared to confront him, tension crackled in the air like static before a storm. Jake's home sat at the far end of Maplewood, a modest structure overshadowed by tall trees and crumbling fences. When Walker arrived, he was met with an atmosphere cloaked in apprehension. A slight figure emerged on the porch, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, eyes averted, a posture that hinted at guilt and defiance. Taking a deep breath, Walker introduced himself, noting the palpable unease that hung between them. "Jake," Walker began, "we need to talk about Sarah Miller." The mention of her name sent a tremor through Jake's posture, his shoulders tightening almost imperceptibly. The sheriff pressed on, detailing the evidence that was accumulating, the witness statements and the messages exchanged between Jake and Sarah. Each word was crafted carefully, meant to both provoke and coax the truth from the boy before him. As Walker outlined the timeline of events, Jake's gaze darted to the ground, a mixture of anger and fear flaring in his eyes. "I didn't hurt her," he blurted, voice shaking. Yet each protestation rang hollow against the backdrop of the sheriff's careful observations. The walls of the small home felt suffocating, steeped in an unspoken tension that made Walker's instincts flare with unease. Jake's emotions were raw, and the more he spoke, the more it became clear he was caught in a tension between innocence and implication. With every passing moment, distrust thickened in the air, a silent battle of wills unveiling the fissures of truth buried deep within the boy's fraught past. Walker understood one thing. They had crossed a threshold, and the confrontation had shifted into a dance of darkness that would soon entangle them all. The trial. Months passed, and the small town of Maplewood had not forgotten Sarah Miller. The clock on the courthouse tower ticked loudly as the trial of Jake Mitchell commenced, its rhythmic pulse mirroring the anxious hearts of those gathered within. The courthouse itself felt like a relic, its wooden beams steeped in centuries of judgment, and today they bore witness to an unfolding tragedy that threatened to divide the community even further. The gallery buzzed with anticipation, the scent of musty documents mingling with the low murmurs of concerned townsfolk. Sheriff Walker sat near the front, feeling the weight of responsibility press upon him. At the center of the proceedings, Jake appeared uncharacteristically subdued, dressed in a crisp suit that belied the chaos surrounding his life. "What are the powers in case me do I moral day a old He blinked nervously, his eyes darting to the jury box as the prosecution laid out the case against him, a tapestry woven with damning evidence and emotional testimonies. The whispers of Sarah's friends, recounting their last interactions with her, painted a vivid picture of a girl full of life, driven by dreams, tainted only by fleeting, adolescent conflicts. Jake's defense team parried with agitation, insisting on the lack of physical evidence, imploring the jury to separate high school drama from the gravity of life and death. Walker remained focused, the evidence he had worked tirelessly to compile echoing in his mind, urging him to believe in justice. As the trial progressed, deep fissures began to emerge within Maplewood. Friends turned against friends, loyalties that were once unwavering began to fray under the pressure of public opinion. Arguments erupted in quiet corners of the town, fueled by fear and uncertainty. The delicate balance of trust and suspicion had shifted irreparably. One late afternoon, the proceedings reached their crescendo when a key witness took the stand, Tyler, his voice quivering as he recounted the tension he had witnessed that fateful night. The air thickened as his words sank deep into the psyche of the courtroom. Would this confession tilt the scales toward justice? Walker felt a flicker of hope amidst the turmoil, sensing that truth, though obscured by shadows, was poised to be brought into the light. The aftermath. The trial concluded, each word echoing in the minds of the townsfolk long after the gavel sounded, signaling the end of a tumultuous chapter. Jake Mitchell was found guilty of second-degree murder, a verdict that sent ripples through Maplewood, a community caught between relief and devastation. As Sheriff Walker stepped outside the courthouse, sunlight filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the worn pavement, a stark contrast to the darkness that had engulfed the estate of the Millers. The haunting cries of Sarah's family reverberated within him. Their grief was palpable, raw wound that would remain long after the legalities had faded. Flowers were laid near the bustling town square in impromptu memorial, where Sarah's friends gathered, tears glistening on their faces as they shared cherished memories of laughter and light. In their hearts, they grappled with questions that could never be answered. Were they complicit in her isolation? Had they missed signs of the turmoil she faced? As weeks settled into months, the town began to heal, yet the scars would linger. Conversations turned to whispers as some residents opted to leave, unwilling to be tethered to the tragedy, while others found a sense of camaraderie in shared grief. The sprawling fields surrounding Maplewood stood untouched, an enduring reminder of the beauty that had been overshadowed by horror. Sheriff Walker resumed life, though it felt like navigating a landscape forever altered. His resolve to ensure that justice served as a foundation for healing solidified. He organized community meetings, urging residents to confront their fears and insecurities, fostering open dialogues to combat the silence that had threatened to divide them. It was a journey toward rebuilding the fragile threads of trust. Behind him, the remnants of the Miller estate still loomed, a weathered fortress of secrets and sorrow. One day, he knew they would find a way to transform it into a place of remembrance, a site not of despair, but of hope and connection, ensuring that Sarah's legacy would not be forgotten, but honored as a catalyst for change. Reflection. With the passing of time, the landscape of Maplewood began to change, adopting a newfound warmth that seemed to blanket the town. Sheriff Walker frequently found solace in the quiet moments, reflecting on the profound journey all had endured. Each morning, he took long walks through the main street, engaging with the townspeople he had come to know intimately over the years. Their earnest stories solidified the bonds forged during the darkest times. One lingering memory surged to the forefront of his mind: the vibrant laughter of Sarah Miller, and the way it intertwined with the fabric of this community. He recalled the efforts underway to create a memorial to honor her, a place where young people could gather, free from judgment, fostering connections and understanding. A vibrant mural painted with blooming flowers would soon decorate the remnants of the Miller estate, a tribute to the girl whose life had become a poignant reminder of the fragility of youth and the critical need to listen. Through this tragedy, Walker had learned that beneath the surface of everyday lives lay complexities that demanded patience and compassion. The darkness they faced had turned into a beacon for transformation. In sharing their pain, the community could find strength together. They would cultivate a legacy of vigilance, ensuring that no voice would go unheard again. As he stood on the edge of the revitalized park, he felt a sense of hope that would guide Maplewood into a brighter, more connected future.